Coach, could you talk about your relationship with Coach Matukovitz?
Yeah. So, Coach Tuke was really my first hire as the head coach at the University of Toledo. When I came on board and really took over as the head football coach there, that was really first order of business, is kind of realigning our football team. I thought the one real challenge for me was taking over as the offensive coordinator. I think that's always hard, and that's hard two ways. Number one, you don't want the perception from the defensive kids to feel like you don't care about them, number one. And then number two, we were really trying to kind of really build a defensive culture there. And, my background obviously is defense. So, I think that made it a little bit easier transition. I had a great relationship with the defensive kids there, and, really asked their kind of response, man, what are we looking for? Because we have to get better if we want to improve as a program. And, I really, Tuke was the right guy at the right time for the job. I was looking for a unifier. I was looking for somebody to come in and really motivate and inspire our kids and kind of match the heart and the culture that I really believe the program should be about. And he did a phenomenal job. I think he saw great growth in the years that we were there. He had come from Northern Illinois, who was having great success at the time, and obviously Jerry Kill, who I have the utmost respect for. And, just in terms of caring about the kids, discipline, effort, energy, man, he really did a great job and kind of provided a great platform as a growth process. And you got to remember, Rob, for myself at the time, you're only 32 years old, so it's not like you really didn't know what the heck was going on, but you were looking for somebody to lead with. And Tuke was a great addition, and he's got a great wife, a great family, great people, and brought some great people along with himself and his family aboard. So it was really a great journey with him, and really helped me a lot as a young football coach.
Matt, compare Brock's practices leading up to that Oklahoma State game in 2018 compared to the prep work, all the prep work Hunter has put in leading up to what will be his first start on Saturday.
Yeah, I just think they're so drastically different, Randy, in so many ways. Brock, true freshman, Brock not really taking over the reins until the midpoint of the season. They're drastically different in terms of, even who they are as quarterbacks to probably who they are as humans. But one of the great things that they both have at such a powerful rate is they're elite competitors, and they are easily able to get the entire locker room to rally around who they are and what they're about. And I just think when you look at Hunter's progress, he's had an entire six months knowing that he's the starting quarterback, and he's prepping to take over the offense and building the offense around him. Where you got to remember, we were one offense for Brock one offense for about 4 games before Brock took over, and then you were kind of trying to evolve as the season went with Brock as he took over. So, I think very different, but the similarities of leadership, player buy-in value, and obviously the intangibles of a winning spirit. Those are some of the strong similarities that those two have.
When you recruited Hunter, how could you tell that he eventually would have leadership qualities?
Well, I'll tell you. I mean, Hunter, if you remember back in that recruiting process, we had already had a quarterback that was committed at the time to that recruiting class. Hunter came with his father. We had saw Hunter in high school and during the spring evaluation period, and we were like, man, this guy's really good. And, I think he started to pick up some interest, obviously, towards the late part of his junior year. And then he came to camp, and, I'll always appreciate his family, and I'll always appreciate him. He had the best camp that I've ever seen a quarterback have in my tenure of coaching. He was flawless the night that he came to our camp. And I pulled him and his father in afterwards, and I just said, listen, I know we already have a quarterback that's committed in this class, but you deserve to have a scholarship from Iowa State. I asked him, to give me a night to call the other quarterback and his family and let them know that we were going to offer 2 quarterbacks in this class and what occurred. I felt like that was the right thing to do. And for him and his family to trust me to do that and to do it the right way by both him and the other young man and his family, I always really appreciated that. And, I think for Hunter, that's what I love about him. He's always had to work for everything that he's gotten, and it's the one thing that I really appreciate about that. And then as you dug deep into Hunter and you watched him succeed in baseball, you watched how he succeeded in basketball, you certainly went to watch his high school football games and how he carried the team around him and his spirit and his competitiveness. I think all those things really started to paint the exact picture of what you were getting. And, but man, for in today's world, as a junior, to going into your senior year to go to camp and earn a scholarship, some kids say, "Now you got to offer me first before I even come." And, that's just kind of, I think, who Hunter is. He's going to prove himself. He's going to work really hard, and he's going to do everything in his power to, when the opportunity arises for him to be successful, he'll be ready for his opportunity. And so, at least up to date, man, he's done a phenomenal job of doing those things.
I know the depth charts that you guys release don't always mean a ton, but what made you guys feel comfortable putting Jairell as the guy at running back? What did he do during camp that made you guys feel like, yeah, this is going to be our guy going into the year?
Oh, that's a good question. I think really for Jairell, since January, and maybe I talked about this last night a little bit, really since January, he has been incredible. Everything you would have asked of him, he has done in terms of, his preparation. You look at him physically right now, he's 223 pounds. He's running as good as I've ever seen him run. He's been phenomenal as a leader. I think sometimes when you're in competition, obviously there's great competition for the tailback position right now and I think we're as healthy there as we've ever been. Sometimes you can shy away as the leader and try to kind of distance yourself, but he hasn't. He's kind of made others around him better. I think he's helped that room be what I think it has the ability to become, and his leadership's been outstanding. So literally everything that he's done has been for the betterment, obviously, of Jairell, but for the betterment of the team in that running back room. And there's no question. He's the guy, and he's put himself in a great position to be the guy. And we're also in a great position to have a lot of guys that have opportunities at their point in time in the game to be the guy for us as well.
We've obviously seen him in spurts running the football, but we haven't seen him do that a ton. How would you describe his running style as a back?
Yeah, well, I think, he certainly has elite power. I think he's got the ability to get vertical with one vertical step and run through people, which I think is certainly a strength of his. What I've been really impressed with is his ability to make people miss in space throughout camp. We've gone live more this camp than probably we have since 17, just with the youth of our team and the inexperience and needing to kind of figure out where we are. And so, getting some of those opportunities to create missed tackles, getting opportunities to show what he can do in space, those have been impressive. So, I think we'll probably all be able to really kind of write that story honestly as the season goes, to see it throughout 12, 13 football games, 14 football games, whatever that may be, of what does that look like and what does that style become. But, yes, he's really strong, but he's also unique enough and I think savvy enough to make it miss in space as well.
Obviously, Dimitri Stanley also made the 2 deep. How has he impressed you since he got to Ames, and how do really his speed and skill set help bolster the receiving core?
Yeah, I think he has been a huge asset to what this offense has the ability to become. I think Dimitri, for us, in terms of, very similar to how I talked about Xavier coming in with sense of purpose early on. He has come in, and whether it was the weight room in the summer to day one of fall camp through 18 fall camp practices to, what we got into last week in terms of practice, boy, he is not disappointed. And again, I think you're coming in and you're fighting for opportunity, right? You're fighting for, you got Darren Wilson, you got Sean Shaw, you got Xavier Hutchinson, you got Jalen Knoll, and you're trying to fight for opportunity. And I think it goes back to the Jirel question, very similar to what's going on at wide receiver now, is there is only one football, right? And that is hard. And our society and sometimes 18 to 22-year-olds forget that there's only one football, and there's a lot of good players. So, man, when you get your shot, when you get your opportunities, you got to prove it. And, it's like I told our kids in practice, there is still a thing called videotape evidence. I don't want to hear what you have to say. Show me what you can do on the video. And, he has done a phenomenal job of that so far. And, again, I think speed, I think, he is a high-end route runner and, has really strong hands. And so I think all those intangibles obviously are benefits to a really good wide receiver.
Coach, to bring it back to Hunter, from a skill set wise, what differences do you see compared to Brock? Maybe strengths that he has that Brock didn't, and then on the other end of that, what weaknesses do you see that you're hoping he kind of works on and progresses as the season progresses on?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think when I look at Hunter just in general, Hunter has got a really strong and accurate arm. Hunter has got, an elite handle on the playbook in terms of, spacing and what's going on and where the ball, needs to go with each coverage opportunity that comes its way. And then, I think Hunter's also got this unique ability from an athletic standpoint that, Hunter can really run. And, I still think for Hunter, it's putting all those things together and now getting the opportunity to get into a game where, you're competing against a defensive coordinator. You're going through the chess match of the in-game adjustments and how you handle all those things. And I think all that stuff it's not fair to say it's a weakness, it's an unknown. And I think the reality is until we get into the meat of the season, it'll be that's probably even a better question I can answer as we continue to see the season unfold. But what I would say is his preparation to handle all those things through the early part of fall camp and the off season, he's done a phenomenal job of that, and I do think he's prepared for the challenges that will come with playing quarterback.
Matt, good to see you. Just with the way that this season starts, how would you compare the feeling of this year to maybe last year in terms of how different the expectations may be, just to get the season started and the excitement level around that?
Yeah, I guess for me, there really isn't a major difference, in my mind. I think obviously, our expectations have really never changed, from year one when we got here and we really believed we could have great success to where we are now going into year 7. I think the expectations have always been the same, which I think that is really positive, and I think that's why you've seen consistency, from our football team. And then, I would say the one thing that is enjoyable about a young team is, that sometimes when you're young and you have not as many veterans on the team, there is, the value of the fight in fall camp, and really understanding, trying to etch out playing time, what are defining roles. I think when it's a little bit undefined, it's still going to take the early part of the season for those things to occur. And man, the value of the fight to earn those roles and define those roles, it's really enjoyable to watch those things kind of take fruition, I guess, a little bit, and roles start to become defined within your team. But, that's how I would answer that.
Matt, I know we've talked a lot from spring to fall about what Anthony Johnson's transition means, what it shows about him. But what precisely does that allow you as a secondary to do by having him at the safety spot instead of one of the corners?
Yeah, I think I would go back, Rob, to say Anthony's one of his greatest strengths is his ability to tackle. It's what always made him a great corner, right? He is a physical football player, and the ability to tackle in space, I always thought that was one of Ant's greatest strengths. And, I think for us, as we watched his body really start to mature over the course of his 3rd and 4th year, you just saw this guy physically maturing from, he was 160 pounds when he came here. Man, this guy's almost a 205, 210 pounds strapped up, good looking man, football player right now as a 22, 23-year-old. And so I think that's where, from a physical mindset, we said maybe it's in his best interest from from corner to safety. I also think the evolution of some of those guys at the corner position, how Miles Purchase really played down the stretch run last year, Tavon Kyle, what we feel like TJ Tampa's got the ability to be as a football player. And you saw, him get off to a slow start at times early in the season last year, but you felt like he finished really strong for a young football player a year ago. And then you moved Aaron Porter, obviously, over there in fall or in spring practice. We felt like, man, maybe this is the right move to give some veteran presence to the safety, but also do what's best for him. Now, you talk schematically, obviously a guy that has played corner certainly has good cover ability, and then you equate that with a guy that's a really good tackler. I think it just gives you more confidence to maybe be a little bit more multiple, in the back end than maybe what we've been in the past. And obviously his skill set allows that to occur. And then you talk about Bo's skill set. I think both those guys, have high-end speed and have the ability to have really positive cover ability as well.
What's the significance of having a 1,000-yard rusher?
Geez, I don't know. I don't know what that is or isn't. I honestly, and to me, I think that's a little bit of if we were back 20 years ago, maybe that would mean something. I think today it's efficiency running the football, which is still the key to success. And I think we've always evaluated our ability to efficiently run the football, and we still equate efficiency. And man, 4 more yards on a play is an efficient run. Averaging more than 4 yards is efficiently running the football in a game. And so, I think those are things we look at way more than, man, do you have an 1,000-yard back? How efficiently are you running the football when you have the opportunity to run the ball? How do you run the ball in short yardage? How do you run the ball down in the red zone? All those things are where we measure, I think, how you're running the ball rather than do you have a 1,000-yard rusher.
Hey, one more thing. You have Remsburg. That's a hard name for me. Remsburg on the depth chart without an oar. Is he going to play on Saturday? Or?
Yeah, I think that's, we're at least at that point where, we're questionable for Saturday rather than saying out. If it was last week, there was no way he would have played. And, whether Jake is ready or not, I think Tuesday and Wednesday practice will still kind of guide that for us. But I would say at least we're back to questionable this week going into this game than we are he's out this week, which I think is a really positive for all of us. We're really excited about the progress he's made. Thought he had a really great start to camp. And then obviously getting injured, was tough. But, we're fortunate for Jake that, he's already back to this point where, there's at least the opportunity for him to be able to go play in this football game.
Hey, Coach. I just wanted to ask you about Isaiah Lee, being that, you're replacing so many guys pretty much on both sides of the ball, but just the leadership he brings as a fifth-year guy. Mm-hmm. I know he has some big shoes to fill, but that's going to be nice to have.
Yeah, I think Isaiah, not only in terms of a player, and I really, again, after probably the 4th game last season, if you would chart defensively who was, our most consistent players on the defensive side of the football, Isaiah would have been in the top 3, right? He was, man, he played really great football. I mean, from, really the 4th game on, I thought he was in the top 3 of consistency, overall performance, and really what he gave to our defense. And, man, you look at the bowl game and really down the stretch run, man, he was phenomenal for our football team. And so, to have a guy like that in the middle, and it's no different, and it's like they talk in baseball, you want to be great up the middle, well, you have to be in football too. And, the middle starts with him. And, I think for Isaiah, as the football player, he has grown light years over the course of the last 2 years. I think he's become a dominant force for us. He's become a really consistent player. And then what you said is leadership, and that's a great word because, the value of that in our football program, when you are a great player and you are an elite leader, then you have a chance to bring everybody else with you. And Isaiah has that personality. I'd say he is the leader of that defensive line room. I think he has really taken a group group of, other than him and Will, a group of a little bit of unknowns, and I think he's really done a phenomenal job since the spring of that group. And I would say that group's made as many strides or as much stride as anybody in our football team over the course of the last 4 or 5 months. So I'm really proud of what he's done, not only for himself but for the betterment of our defensive line room.
I think you guys had 6 true freshmen listed on your depth chart. I would imagine that's as many as you've had in quite a while. What has that group done that makes you guys feel comfortable that you can put them out there and play on Saturday?
Yeah, I think when you look at that and, those names, a guy like a Dom Orange, a guy like Cartavius Norton, a Jeremiah Cooper, you're talking about guys, and then you almost think about, man, those guys that came in mid-year, you start to lose track of years, just because it's like, man, when you're already here for that long, you almost feel like you shouldn't be a true freshman, right? I think Will McLaughlin, another name, you're talking about guys that they've earned the right to be there. Obviously, I think you know me well enough. I'm not going to say something nice about you unless you've earned the right to be where you're at. And, I think from those guys' standpoint, man, they've earned it. They've earned it either through being here a spring and a summer, being here a summer and a fall camp, to get to where they're at right now. Those guys have earned the right to do that. And, I think a little bit like last year, I was saying this last night, maybe on the radio show too, is, you talk about Freiler, you talk about Purchase, you're like, man, we had no idea on last year's team could a freshman really emerge, and they did really fast. And I feel like, credit to last year's class, or in this year's class, I would say 2 of our most talented classes that we brought in. There are guys that are coming in and straining to compete right away. And when that happens, it makes everybody else rise to the occasion. Because as I said, when competition is high, you got to come to practice every day to earn the right to get on the football field for us. Yeah, thank you guys.